That is a $10,000 savings. Like, that is insane. Hello homies and welcome back to Kayla Simone Home. I am, you guessed it, Kayla Simone, and today we're jumping right back into that chat that we were having about my floors. I don't think that I've ever been so obsessed with something that I selected for our home before, and I'm pretty sure it's because of all of the extensive research that I put into finding these floors, and because we were like this close to not even having them at all. So if you want the tea on that whole situation, make sure you go watch part 1 to this flooring series, but for now, let's jump straight into talking about the install process. These are laminate plank flooring. They're called Mohawk Revwood Premier in the color Golden Hour Oak. We have it almost all throughout our 1-story open concept home, and we just love how bright and open and warm they make our house feel. When we built this house, the builder wanted to charge us $26,000 just to put it in the main areas of the house. Not in the bathrooms, not in the laundry room, not in the bedroom, not in what you guys know as our office, which is like the bonus room, just in the main hallway, the kitchen, living area, and the 2 small hallways that we have. $26,000. I think the not. Instead, we kept the standard carpet and tile flooring because you cannot close without floors. Trust me, I asked, and we had the floors redone right after we closed. So now that you know a little bit of the backstory about why we had to get the floors done after the house was finished being built, let's get into the process of what that was like with the sponsor of today's video, Floor King. Floor King is a local family and women-owned flooring and tile company here in Austin. They have multiple locations in the greater Austin area and thousands of selections to choose from when it comes to flooring, carpet, and tile. Some of you may remember the early days of Kayla Simone Home when I was a new home designer for semi-custom and custom home builders. Well, that was here at Floor King in their builder design studios. It is always so cool and such a great experience to work with the people at Floor King in any capacity, but honestly, it means even more to me now to be able to shop their extensive collection of products for my own home. Floor King has plenty of samples for you to look at in store. You can check them out kind of like a library and take the large display home so that you can view them in your space. And they can also order the sample boards for you directly from the manufacturer. This totally beats the tiny samples that you can order yourself online. After you find the perfect flooring or tile for your project, Floor King will get it ordered for you and get you on the schedule for installation. If you do decide to go the DIY route, then you can either pick up the tile or whatever you ordered from their warehouse, or you can work with them to schedule delivery to your door. Me personally, there was no way that I was installing almost 2,000 square feet of flooring by myself in this house. Now, I did think about it. I did consider it because I am me and, you know, I have that, I can do that gene. Well, luckily, my friends and family talked me out of that plan real quick. They were like, girl, you are crazy. I don't think that you realize what you might be getting yourself into. And I am so glad that I listened to them because I installed just 1 room of flooring in this house. It's not necessarily that it's a hard thing to DIY. It's just such a tedious process of constantly getting up and down off the floor that after just 2 days of doing it myself, I was so glad that we had Floor King install the rest of the floors, because if it were up to me, we still wouldn't have floors. The install team showed up right on time first thing in the morning and began prepping for tile removal. They covered our kitchen cabinets and vents, but luckily, since we hadn't moved in yet, there wasn't really much else to worry about getting dusty. Tile removal is a super dusty process, so I was more than happy to let them handle it for about $3 to $4 a square foot. After all the tile was removed and the floors were completely swept clean, they began pouring out the floor prep. This leveled out the concrete so that we wouldn't end up with any dips or humps under the planks. Once the floor prep was dry, they put down the moisture barrier to keep any moisture from coming up through the concrete and warping the floors, and started to lay the planks. And when I tell y'all, they flew through this process. I'm about to go see the floors for the first time. I left to go to a doctor's appointment right before they were about to start on the floors. I waited as long as I possibly could, and then I had to go. So I'm about to go see them for the first time, and it's not that I'm nervous. I would say I'm excited. I'm like slightly nervous about the color just because the sample that we had, you know, it's just that like one board. You don't know what it's gonna look like in the whole house, but I'm really excited. I think it's gonna look really good. Okay, let's go see. They were seriously so quick, and I wasn't trying to hang around and just record them all day because I felt like that might be a little bit weird. So when I came back at the end of the day to check on their progress, I expected the house to be like halfway done, like probably main areas and hallways, but no sis. The Floor King team had knocked out the entire house in a single day. Like, excuse me, what? Y'all, this floor looks freaking incredible. How did they do this in one day? How did they do all of this in one day? That's what I need to know, because I could never. This, I love it. It looks so freaking good in here. Like I cannot even express to you guys how happy I am with this color. This is exactly the color that I wanted. I'm so happy with how this turned out. Gosh, it's still so echoey in here since there's no furniture, but my mind is just like still literally blown that this morning, this room looked like this, and now it looks like this. Like, what the heck? I just know that tomorrow when I come back over here and like see it in the daylight, it's gonna look even better. Like all of the light just pouring into here. That's literally the biggest thing that I love about this house so far, is how much natural light it gets, because our old house was so dark and I didn't even realize it until I would go to other people's houses that were bright without the lights on, and I'm like, dang, our house is really dark. And this house is not like that at all. I also plan on doing a lot with like the lighting and like adding mood lighting, smart lighting, like different types of lighting everywhere. But the natural lighting, babe, already on point. Gosh, I gotta show you guys this. I gotta show you guys what it looks like. I mean, can you even? This looks like a custom home now. Like, Builder Gray who? Builder Gray where? Builder Gray to what, honey? This looks so freaking good. Oh my gosh. Okay, let me put you in like, I'm in 0.5 zoom right now, so let me put you in normal camera mode, because this is gonna give you a better idea of like the color and the details. The 0.5 zoom just isn't really giving you the best quality because it's nighttime, but tomorrow you'll be able to see it better. It's just the right amount of like warmth, like a little pink, a little yellow. I really hope this is gonna be able to come across right on camera, because it's just so good. And like the grain, the like small knots that are in it, which aren't, they're just like, they're not real knots. You can feel them. There's texture to the floor. My little baby hands. There's texture to the floor, but this isn't like, since it's not real wood, there's not actually like a big knot in here. Gosh, it just looks so good. This space looks so big and so open now. I cannot wait to see this whole room come together. This was so worth every single penny that we spent on it, from the attention to detail, the professional process, the experienced installers, the amount of time saved. So you guys remember that I told you that the builders wanted to charge us $26,000 for about 1,000 square feet of flooring. Just wait for it. For 2,000 square feet of flooring, the removal of 413 square feet of tile that was in the dining kitchen area, and then we had a little bit up in the entryway. We paid $16,636. Plus, we got more rooms done than what was in the builder's original quote. $10,000 savings. Like, that is insane. So for obvious reasons, I will always be a Floor King stan. I know that whenever I have a project that needs tile or flooring, I can trust them to do an amazing install, get me the materials that I need quickly, and give me a fair price. So thank you so much again to Floor King for sponsoring today's video, for working with me to install these gorgeous floors, and for always supporting all of my wild DIY ideas. Speaking of DIY, this would hardly be a Kayla Simone home video without it. So I did, like I mentioned, install floors in just one room, specifically so that I could give you guys a tutorial. Like, I would have been totally fine to not touch any of the flooring, and I can tell you right now, not a project that I think that I will be doing again, if I'm being completely honest. Like I said, it's not that it was such a hard project to do, it just wasn't really a fun one. This was probably like my second or third time installing flooring, but my first time working with this specific product. And because of that, like, very rigid core, they were a little difficult to get into place. And so I was like, I don't know if I'm lazy or if I'm like out of shape or what, but it was just like kind of taking a toll on me. I didn't expect it to be such like a strenuous activity, but whatever. I don't know. Maybe I'm being dramatic, but roll the film. Y'all will see. We already removed all the carpet in this room, but if you need a tutorial on that, check out this video. So I'm starting here with a totally blank slate and concrete subfloor. If you have a wood subfloor, your steps for prep may be a little bit different. I don't know, because I don't have a wood subfloor, but with concrete, you start by making sure the floor is 100% level. I really didn't feel like pouring the floor prep and all that like Floor King did, and luckily I didn't really need to because this room was already perfectly level, so I skipped that part, but I did make sure that the floor was totally clean and clear of any debris or staples, that there were no carpet tack strips left behind, and there were no chunks of concrete missing. After that, you'll need to put down a moisture barrier. Concrete is porous, so as it absorbs moisture from the ground, you don't want that seeping up underneath your floors, so this plastic prevents that. You want to overlap the strips by a few inches, but I don't really remember how many, so make sure you check the instructions. But basically, just overlap the strips of plastic, make sure the entire floor is covered. Mine also had an adhesive strip on the back so that it wouldn't slide around the floor as much. And then after this, you would normally put down your underlayment, but the flooring that I'm using already has an attached underlayment pad, so I don't have to do that part either. So because we already have all of this floor out here installed, I have to start here at the threshold of the room, which kind of funny because I would not have wanted to start with such a tricky piece, but I'm gonna have to. So I popped up the piece that Floor King had installed right here in the like threshold area. They had cut it so that it just ended right here when you went into this room because they weren't sure what I was gonna do in here. So I have to install a new full plank right here, but I actually want to keep the whole like width of the plank so that if there's any that can run into the room here, I can do that. So let me show you. I used my multi-tool to undercut the door jamb and baseboard so that the planks would be able to slide underneath the door jamb and I wouldn't have any gaps around the door frame. So for this first piece, I just use this piece that Floor King had already installed, and I use this as a template to cut a new piece out of a new plank, but I left the full width on it since it needs to reach out into this room, and so that's how I got this long piece over here that continues into the room, and then I'll use this one that used to be installed over here as my template for this side. I used my jigsaw for any weird or non-straight line cuts. You really only have to do this in the doorways and maybe around like weird corners if you have any, but the majority of your cuts will actually just be straight across. When you're cutting with your jigsaw, you're not going to be able to make 90-degree cuts. So you always want to cut kind of like at a curve, at an angle, and then you can go back in and clean up the straight lines. Nice. Okay, so first piece is installed, and for what it's worth, this should be the hardest piece of this entire thing. Except for maybe once we get to the doorway into that closet, but I mean, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So from here, should be pretty easy to just continue laying the planks. So I'm gonna do a little bit and then I will show you guys how. And spoiler alert, it did not go well at all. You can see on the right side of this clip that I forgot to do one of the most important steps of laying down floors, which is weighing down your first couple rows of flooring. On the left side of the room, I probably should have weighed down those rows too, but there's a wall there and then there's finished flooring through the doorway behind here. So as I'm hammering the new planks into place, they're just locking in no problem because there's resistance behind them. But back over on the right side of the room, you can see that there's no flooring installed in the closet yet, so the planks just stop and float there with nothing holding them in place. So as I continued adding new planks and hammering them into place, eventually the rows of planks started to shift and the line was no longer straight. And once your line isn't straight, it throws off everything and you really can't continue. At that point, I actually just stopped recording for the night because I was so frustrated. I tried to shift all of the rows back into place by pushing them with my feet, and I ended up kicking the whole thing out of whack and having to take all of the rows apart and then reassemble them the next day. I basically wasted an entire day of install, all because I forgot that one key step. So do not be like me, but also, if you do make a mistake, know that it's really not the end of the world. Figure out how you can fix it so that you can move forward, learn from your mistakes so that you don't make it again, take a break, get some rest, and then come back tomorrow with a fresh attitude. Good morning! The floors are fixed. It only took me like an hour, honestly, to relay the planks the way that they were supposed to be. It was not an hour that I wanted to spend doing that since I already spent so much time doing the floors yesterday, but today is going so much better. And it's at the end of the day, I would have had to redo those planks anyway because the whole reason that I tried to shift them in the first place was because my line wasn't straight anymore. So I have there we go. I've got my dumbbells, really heavy dumbbells on there so that the floors don't shift at all. So we've just been moving and grooving all day today. It's going really well. So I'm now that I actually have a grasp on what I'm doing and I feel competent enough to share the steps with you, I'm gonna walk you guys through exactly how to do this. It's not necessarily that it's hard by any means. There's some things that you need to be aware of, and then also it's hard on your body, being bent over and on the ground like that. That's the hard part of it. But laying the floors, it's not a hard thing. It's not a hard concept to understand. It just takes a long time, and I'm very tired and very sore, but let's get to it so that we can finish out this room today. I probably should have shown you guys how I did this row since I was using a full plank, but basically, hi Ginger, hi sweetie. Why do you always come right here when I'm trying to do stuff on camera, huh? What is it? You either want to start with a full piece or a cut piece. I used a full piece in this row, so I'm going to be using the piece that I cut off of the end of that row's plank. If it doesn't make sense to you now, it'll make sense in a second. So, starting with a cut piece, you just want to come in at an angle so that the tongue and groove fits together, and then go ahead and bend it down. I'm trying to line it up with my little spacer here. Bend it down, and if it doesn't automatically lock into place, like if it's still kind of raised like that, go ahead and use your tapping block. You're gonna line up this like indented part right on top of your groove here, and then just tap it into place. Now, one thing to be mindful of, you do want to be really careful because this is wood, it's like MDF, like this part of the plank can get really messed up from the tapping block, and especially from this like edge puller type piece. So I only ever use this when I'm on the end, like when I get to the end of this row and I'm having to put it here to like pull the pieces together. I messed up a lot of boards by trying to use this here. It just does not work well. So I always use the tapping block here and then on this side where it. So after you start off with a short piece, all of the pieces from here on out are going to be long until you get to the end of the row, and then you'll have to cut that piece, and then whatever you cut off at the end, we'll start your next row. So with your full piece, same thing. You want to try to lock it into place here by starting at an angle and then moving it down. Oh, I just noticed, shoot, that this one is chipped. That's another thing about these planks specifically. I don't know if it's my inability to install them correctly or like professionally, you know, having never done this before with these exact planks, but I keep chipping a lot of them. So like here, right on the edge, just a little bit, you can see that this is chipped. So I don't actually want to use this one. I'm going to remove this, and I'm not going to be able to use this one. It's so minimal that like nobody will probably be able to tell, but I'm just like, I don't want it to continue to get worse or like have it be like an issue where you can like cut your foot on it or anything. So just be really careful when you're using your tapping block that it doesn't cause the edge of your plank to chip. So I'm actually just gonna remove this one and swap it with another piece that I already have cut. Okay, now that that's all swapped out, back to this piece. I start with the long edge and I try to slide it as close to the next plank as I can. Get it lined up, and then use my tapping block again to tap this into place on the long side. This, I feel like, is definitely the most tricky part because the planks, you know, they want to lift up. So sometimes I'm able to just put a little bit of my weight on it with my foot, and that helps. You can see how that. The threshold going into the bathroom, don't worry about this missing tile. I showed you guys that we accidentally damaged this when we were pulling up the carpet, and I just haven't replaced it yet. Nothing to worry about there. Here, I'm just going to measure kind of like into the doorway a little bit. I will have a transition piece. I think it's called a reducer, and it like goes like this. So that your planks run underneath it, and then it's got like a little transition, and then it goes into the tile. So I just want to kind of like come up to right about where this vapor barrier ends. So I'm just going to cut a piece to put right here. So now I have a small piece that will fit here. My transition is about 2 inches wide, so it will cover up this gap right here. And I can use the cut end of this piece that I just installed, since it still has the tongue on it, to start my next row over here. And that's how you can ensure that you always end up with staggered planks, is by using the cut end of your last piece to start your next row, because you don't want the lines, the ends of the planks to line up as much as you can help it. The one caveat to using your cut piece to start your next row is that the piece has to be at least 8 inches long, or else you're not gonna be able to use it. The only other thing I wanted to mention is make sure you watch more tutorials than this. This is really meant to just be a general overview of what I did so that it's simple and straightforward to follow along with. But if you need a more in-depth explanation or someone to walk you through all of this at a slower pace, you are in the perfect spot. YouTube, my friend, that is where I go to watch all the tutorials for every project that I do before I get started. And I don't just stop after watching one video. I watch 3, 4, 5, as many videos as I can find before I get started. And then I also come back to YouTube for a little refresher whenever I run into a problem. I do still have to go back and install the shoe mold in this room. I'm just a girl, okay? I'm just one girl with a lot of deadlines, so I didn't get a chance to install the shoe mold right after I finished this room, but mark my words, they will be done by the end of the year. Like, I refuse to let this project drag on like I did the baseboards in our last house. For those of you that are new here, Floor King also installed the floors in our last house. Same situation. We got the builder stuff and then we had to remove it. We had Floor King come in a couple days later, put in the new floors, except that time we actually removed all of the baseboards so that we could replace them with like the newer modern style. And would you believe that 3 years later, when we were trying to, you know, prep the house to sell it, I was still installing those damn baseboards. Baseboards are just not a fun project, so they turned into a forever project. This time though, I learned from my mistakes. We upgraded the baseboards and door trim through the builder, and then after Floor King installed the new floors, they also installed the shoe mold for us to cover the expansion gaps. I do still have to go back and caulk and paint. I saved a little bit of money by not having them do that part, but that's fine by me because I actually love painting, so yeah. This year, mark my words, the baseboards and the shoe mold will be completely finished before we hit 2025. But not today, because I am actually in the middle of a kitchen renovation right now, so I'm kind of busy. I actually need to get all of this stuff cleaned up so that I can get back to that. So Enough of my yapping. I hope that this video was helpful for you guys and that you'll be able to use it in your own home building and renovation flooring projects. If you like me, if you like my projects, my DIY tutorials, if you want to see how the kitchen turns out, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a thing. And in just a sec, I will drop that video about how I selected these floors obsessively right on the screen so that you can watch that after this. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, homies.